Weeks passed, and life slowly began to return to normal, or as normal as it could be after everything that had happened. Claire tried her best to settle back into her routine, spending her days teaching art classes at the local community center and helping out on her family's farm. But no matter how hard she tried to focus on the present, her thoughts often drifted back to Zix. She couldn't forget the alien who had risked everything to save her, the being who had shown her kindness in a place where she least expected it. Ethan noticed the change in her. While Claire smiled and laughed like she always did, there was a quiet sadness in her eyes, a weight she carried silently. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Ethan finally spoke up. "You've been different lately," he said gently, his voice filled with concern. Is it because of what happened?" Claire hesitated before nodding. "I can't stop thinking about Zix, about what he did for me. He gave up so much, his freedom, maybe even his life, just to make sure I got home safely." Ethan reached over, placing a comforting hand on hers. "That must have been hard to see. But you're here now because of him. Doesn't that count for something?" "It does," Claire admitted, her voice soft but steady. "But I feel like I owe him more than just gratitude. Like I need to do something to honor what he did." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe you already are. By living your life fully. By not letting fear hold you back. That's how you show him he made the right choice." Claire smiled faintly, leaning her head against Ethan's shoulder. "You're probably right. But sometimes, late at night, I still look up at the stars and wonder if he's out there somewhere. If he's okay." One crisp autumn night, Claire decided to visit the field where it all began, the same spot where the beam of light had taken her away weeks earlier. She brought along a blanket and a thermos of hot cocoa, settling down under the vast expanse of twinkling stars. The air was cool, and the only sound was the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. As she gazed upward, she noticed a familiar flicker in the sky, a faint, pulsing light moving steadily across the heavens. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized it was the same signal she'd seen before. This time, however, the message was clearer. "You are stronger than you know." Zix's telepathic voice echoed softly in her mind. "Do not mourn me, Claire. My actions were not sacrifices. They were choices. Choices made freely, without regret." Tears welled up in Claire's eyes as she whispered into the night. "I'll never forget you, Zix. You changed me. You showed me what true courage looks like. Thank you." The light flickered once more before fading into the distance, leaving Claire alone under the endless blanket of stars. Though she couldn't see Zix anymore, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. He wasn't gone. Not really. His memory lived on in her heart, a reminder of the bond they had shared and the lessons she had learned. From that night on, Claire approached life with renewed purpose. She threw herself into her work, inspiring her students with stories of resilience and hope. She spent more time outdoors, stargazing and marveling at the beauty of the universe. And whenever doubt crept in, she reminded herself of Zix's words. "You are stronger than you know." Ethan noticed the change in her too. Gone was the lingering sadness, replaced by a quiet confidence that seemed to radiate from within. One evening, as they lay side by side in the grass, staring up at the stars, Ethan turned to her with a smile. "You seem lighter," he said, "like whatever was weighing you down is finally gone." Claire grinned, squeezing his hand. "It is. I think I finally understand something Zix taught me. That life isn't about avoiding pain or fear. It's about finding meaning in the moments that matter most." Ethan nodded, pulling her closer. "Sounds like he was pretty smart for an alien." Claire laughed softly, her gaze drifting back to the stars. "Yeah," she murmured. "He really was." And as the night stretched on, the two of them lay in comfortable silence, surrounded by the beauty of the world and the infinite possibilities of the cosmos above. Somewhere among the stars, Zix watched silently, content in the knowledge that his actions had sparked a ripple of change, a small but meaningful impact on a species he had come to admire. In the end, Claire realized that while their encounter had been brief, its effects would last a lifetime. The escape pod lay half buried in the dirt, its surface scratched and dented from the rough landing. Claire sat on the ground beside it, her legs folded beneath her as Ethan knelt close, holding her hand tightly. His eyes searched her face, taking in every detail as if afraid she might disappear again. Lucy stood a few steps away, snapping photos of the pod and jotting down notes in her notebook, though her hands trembled slightly with nerves. "Are you hurt?" Ethan asked softly, brushing a strand of Claire's hair out of her face. Did they do anything to you?" Claire shook her head, tears still streaming down her cheeks. "No, I'm okay. Thanks to Zix." Ethan frowned, his grip tightening slightly. "Zix? Who's that?" He was one of them," Claire explained, her voice shaking. "An alien. He abducted me at first, but then he changed. He protected me, risked everything to get me back here." She paused, swallowing hard. "He stayed behind so I could escape. They'll probably punish him, or worse." Lucy lowered her notebook, her brow furrowed. "Wait, you're saying an alien helped you? Like willingly?" Claire nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "It sounds crazy, I know. But Zix wasn't like the others. He listened to me, tried to understand what it means to be human. And because of that, I'm alive right now." Ethan looked conflicted, torn between relief and disbelief. "I don't care who or what helped you," he said finally, pulling her into another tight hug. "All that matters is you're safe." For a moment, none of them spoke. The only sounds were the soft rustle of wind across the barren landscape and the distant hum of the massive alien ship still hovering above them. It loomed ominously, a reminder of how close they had come to losing Claire forever. "We need to leave," Lucy said suddenly, breaking the silence. "If that thing decides to send more drones, or whatever, they'll find us here." Ethan nodded, helping Claire to her feet. "She's right. Let's go." As they began walking back toward the portal that had brought them to this strange place, Claire glanced over her shoulder at the alien craft. Her heart ached for Zix, wondering what was happening to him now. Had his people discovered his betrayal? Was he being punished, or worse? Back on Earth, the trio emerged from the woods near Claire's family farm, just as dawn broke over the horizon. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, casting a warm glow over the fields. For the first time in days, Claire felt a flicker of peace. She was home. But even as Ethan held her close and Lucy packed up their equipment, Claire couldn't stop thinking about Zix. That night, after everyone else had gone to bed, she stepped outside and gazed up at the stars. The sky seemed endless, filled with possibilities and mysteries far beyond human comprehension. And then she saw it, a faint flicker of light moving across the heavens. At first, she thought it might be a trick of the eye, but the light pulsed rhythmically, almost like a signal. Claire's breath caught in her throat as she realized what it was. A message. "Thank you." The telepathic voice echoed gently in her mind, unmistakably Zix. "You have taught me much about your kind, about courage, compassion, and connection. Remember me." Tears welled up in Claire's eyes as she whispered into the night. "Thank you, Zix, for everything." The light flickered once more before fading into the darkness, leaving Claire alone under the vast expanse of stars. She didn't know where Zix was now, or if she would ever hear from him again. But she vowed to honor his sacrifice by living fully and embracing the beauty of life. The next morning, Ethan found Claire sitting at the kitchen table, sipping a cup of tea. She looked tired but peaceful, her expression softer than it had been in days. When he asked what she was thinking about, she simply smiled. "I was thinking about how lucky we are," she said quietly. "How lucky I am to have you, to be here, to have met someone like Zix." Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "We'll figure this out together, Claire. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. Outside, the sun rose higher in the sky, bathing the world in golden light. Somewhere among the stars, Zix watched silently, content in the knowledge that his actions had made a difference, not just for Claire, but for himself as well. Claire sat huddled in the corner of the dimly lit storage bay, her knees pulled up to her chest. The air was cold and metallic smelling, but at least it was quiet. Quieter than the rest of the alien ship anyway. Zix had left her there hours ago, promising to return once it figured out their next move. But as time dragged on, Claire couldn't shake the gnawing fear that something had gone wrong. What if Zix's superiors had discovered her hiding place? Or worse, what if Zix had changed its mind? Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft hiss as the door slid open. Zix entered quickly, its tall frame ducking slightly to fit through the narrow entrance. In its claw-like hands, it held what looked like a small glowing device. "They are coming," Zix said urgently, its telepathic voice tinged with alarm. "I have delayed them as long as I can, but they will find us soon." Claire stood up shakily, gripping the wall for support. "What do we do now?" Zix held out the device, its multifaceted eyes locking onto hers. "This is an escape pod controller. It will take you back to Earth. But we must act quickly." Claire stared at the object, her heart racing. "What about you? Are you coming with me?" Zix hesitated, its body stiffening slightly. "I cannot leave this vessel. To do so would mean certain punishment, or death, for both of us." "But you saved me," Claire argued, tears welling up in her eyes. "You risked everything for me. I can't just abandon you here." "You must," Zix replied firmly, though its voice wavered ever so slightly. "Your survival is more important than mine. Go home, Claire. Live fully. That is how you honor what I have done." Before Claire could protest further, the ship trembled violently, throwing both of them off balance. Alarms blared loudly, filling the air with a deafening screech. Zix grabbed Claire's arm and pulled her toward the exit. "There is no more time. Follow me." The two raced through the winding corridors, dodging flashing red lights and strange, shadowy figures that appeared to be searching for them. Claire's legs burned with exhaustion, but she forced herself to keep moving, trusting Zix to lead the way. Finally, they reached a large chamber where a sleek, egg-shaped pod awaited. "Get inside," Zix instructed, gesturing toward the open hatch. Claire hesitated, her eyes locked onto Zix's glowing form. "Please," it added softly, "do not make my sacrifice meaningless." Tears streamed down Claire's face as she climbed into the pod, her hands trembling as she strapped herself in. Zix closed the hatch and stepped back, its expression unreadable but somehow filled with quiet resolve. "Goodbye, Claire," it said, its voice echoing gently in her mind. "Remember me." With a final nod, Zix activated the controls, and the pod began to hum with energy. Claire pressed her palms against the glass, watching as Zix turned and faced the approaching figures, its own people. They surrounded it, their weapons raised, but Zix didn't flinch. Instead, it stood tall, shielding the pod from view until the very last moment. As the pod launched, Claire caught one final glimpse of Zix before the ship disappeared into the vastness of space. She leaned back in her seat, clutching her knees tightly as the weight of what had just happened crashed over her. Zix had given up everything to save her, a being who had once seen her only as a specimen. And now, all she could do was honor its bravery by making the most of the second chance it had given her. Back on Earth, Ethan and Lucy stumbled through a swirling vortex of light and sound, their senses overwhelmed by the sheer strangeness of the alien portal. When they finally emerged on the other side, they found themselves standing in a barren, gray landscape that stretched endlessly in every direction. Above them loomed a massive spacecraft, its surface shimmering like liquid metal. This is insane," Lucy stammered, clutching her notebook like a lifeline. "We're actually here." Ethan ignored her, scanning the area frantically. His eyes widened as he spotted a streak of light, descending rapidly toward the planet's surface. "Look," he shouted, pointing at the sky. That has to be Claire. Without waiting, Ethan took off running, Lucy struggling to keep up behind him. As they approached the crash site, they saw the outline of a small pod embedded in the dirt. Ethan reached it first, yanking open the hatch with trembling hands. Inside, battered but alive, was Claire. "Claire," Ethan cried, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You're okay. You're really okay." Claire clung to him, sobbing uncontrollably. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered. Lucy stood back, watching the reunion with a mix of awe and relief. For the first time since this bizarre journey began, it felt like they might actually have a happy ending. Zix stood frozen in the middle of the alien ship's control room, its glowing eyes darting nervously between Claire and the holographic display hovering above a central console. The symbols on the screen pulsed with urgency, signaling an incoming transmission from Zix's superiors. It had been hours since the last update, and now they were demanding answers. Answers Zix didn't have. Claire watched silently from the corner of the room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She could sense the tension radiating from Zix, even if she couldn't fully understand what was happening. Whatever this message meant, it wasn't good. "They're upset," Zix said finally, its telepathic voice tinged with unease. "They want to know why the experiments are failing. Why you remain incompatible." Claire frowned, shifting uncomfortably. "What happens if you don't give them an answer?" Zix hesitated before responding. "They will intervene. They will take over the process themselves." The thought sent a chill down Claire's spine. If Zix's own people were willing to step in, she doubted they would show the same hesitation or restraint. "Is there anything you can do to stop them?" she asked quietly. Zix turned to face her, its multifaceted eyes glowing brighter than usual. "I am bound by duty to my collective. To defy them is unthinkable." "But you've already started questioning things." Claire pressed gently, taking a cautious step forward. "You've felt emotions. Listen to me. Try to understand. Doesn't that count for something?" Zix lowered its head, its long limbs trembling slightly. "It is dangerous to think this way. Yet, I cannot ignore what I have learned from you. Humans are not specimens to be studied. You are beings of complexity and in depth." Claire felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Zix wasn't as loyal to its kind as it claimed. "Then help me," she urged. "If you let them take over, who knows what they'll do to me. But if you act now, we might still have a chance." Zix straightened suddenly, its posture rigid as another wave of vibrations rippled through the ship. The transmission was becoming more insistent, almost angry. Time was running out. "I will hide you," Zix decided abruptly. "There is a storage bay deep within the vessel. It is rarely accessed. You will be safe there, for now." Claire's eyes widened in surprise. "You'd really risk everything for me." "I do not know why I feel compelled to protect you," Zix admitted, its voice softer than ever. "But I cannot stand idly by while harm comes to you." Without waiting for a response, Zix gestured for Claire to follow. Together, they moved swiftly through the labyrinthine corridors of the ship, their footsteps echoing softly against the metallic walls. Claire kept close behind, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and gratitude. She didn't fully trust Zix, but she knew it was her only shot at survival. Back on Earth, Ethan and Lucy crouched behind a cluster of bushes near the edge of the woods, their flashlights turned off to avoid detection. In front of them lay the mysterious clearing where the beam of light had struck earlier. Now faint traces of energy crackled in the air, making the hairs on their arms stand on end. "This place gives me the creeps," Lucy whispered, clutching her notebook tightly. "Are you sure about this?" Ethan nodded, his jaw set firmly. "We don't have a choice. That symbol we found, it has to mean something. And if it leads us to Claire, then I'm going all the way." Before Lucy could argue further, a low hum began to resonate around them, growing louder with each passing second. The ground beneath their feet vibrated, and a soft glow emerged from the center of the clearing. Slowly, A circular portal-like structure materialized, shimmering with an otherworldly light. "What is that?" Lucy hissed, her voice barely audible over the noise. "I don't know," Ethan replied, his eyes fixed intently on the phenomenon. "But I think it's our way in." As they inched closer, the portal flared brightly, revealing swirling colors that seemed to stretch into infinity. Ethan glanced at Lucy, who looked pale but determined. "Ready?" he asked. Lucy swallowed hard but nodded. "Let's just hope we don't regret this." Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the unknown. Lucy followed closely behind, her heart racing as the world around them dissolved into a blur of light and sound. Whatever awaited them on the other side, one thing was certain. They were closer to finding Claire than ever before. On the alien ship, Claire sat cross-legged on the cold metallic floor, her arms wrapped around her knees. Zix stood nearby, its tall, insect-like frame casting long shadows in the dim light. The two of them had been sitting in silence for what felt like hours, though time seemed meaningless aboard the spacecraft. Claire wasn't sure if Zix was thinking, observing, or simply ignoring her, but she decided to break the quiet. "Do you ever feel lonely?" she asked suddenly, her voice soft but steady. Zix turned its head slowly, its glowing eyes locking onto hers. "Loneliness is a human concept," it replied. "We do not experience such things." Claire tilted her head, studying the creature. "But you said emotions are irrelevant. So why did you hesitate when I mentioned Ethan? Why did you seem unsure?" Zix didn't answer right away. Instead, it moved closer, its movements deliberate and careful, as if afraid of startling her. "Your words confuse me," it admitted after a pause. "They create sensations I cannot explain, sensations that interfere with my purpose." Claire's heart skipped a beat. Could it be possible that Zix was feeling something new and unfamiliar? She pressed further, emboldened by curiosity. "What kind of sensations?" "I do not know how to describe them," Zix said, its telepathic voice tinged with frustration. "It is as though your emotions are contagious, spreading into my consciousness. It is uncomfortable." Claire bit her lip, unsure whether to feel sorry for Zix or terrified of its admission. "Maybe it's because you're trying to understand humans without actually connecting with us. You can't learn everything from machines and data. Sometimes you just have to listen." Zix's body tensed slightly, its claw-like fingers twitching. Listening is inefficient. Emotions are unpredictable. They serve no logical function, but they make life worth living, Claire countered gently. "Think about it. If you didn't feel anything, if you were completely empty inside, wouldn't that be worse than being confused?" Zix didn't respond immediately. Instead, it lowered itself to the ground, its long limbs folding awkwardly as it mimicked Claire's seated position. For the first time since their encounter began, Claire noticed a hint of vulnerability in the alien's demeanor. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it gave her hope. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Ethan and Lucy trudged through the dense woods near Claire's farm, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air was thick with humidity, and the sound of crickets filled the night. Ethan carried a duffel bag filled with equipment, cameras, audio recorders, and even a borrowed Geiger counter, while Lucy scribbled notes in a small notebook. "This is ridiculous," Lucy muttered under her breath, swatting at a mosquito buzzing around her ear. "We're chasing shadows based on some old man's ramblings." "It's not just his story," Ethan shot back, his tone sharp with frustration. "I saw the lights, Lucy. I watched Claire get taken. This isn't some crazy conspiracy theory. It's real." Lucy sighed, adjusting the strap of her backpack. "Fine. Let's say you're right. What exactly are we looking for out here?" A giant spaceship parked behind a tree. Before Ethan could reply, the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate faintly. Both of them froze, exchanging wide-eyed glances as the hum of energy grew louder. Above them, The trees rustled violently, and a blinding beam of light shot down from the sky, illuminating the clearing ahead. "Get down," Ethan shouted, pulling Lucy behind a large oak tree. Peering cautiously around the trunk, they watched as the light faded, revealing a circular patch of scorched earth where nothing had been moments before. "What the hell was that?" Lucy whispered, her voice shaking. Ethan stared at the spot, his jaw clenched tightly. "That's where they took her," he said grimly. "And it's where we'll find her." Lucy hesitated, gripping her notebook tightly. "You realize this could get us killed, right?" Ethan nodded, his expression resolute. "I don't care. I'm not leaving without Claire." As they stepped cautiously into the clearing, Ethan spotted something glinting in the dirt, a small metallic object shaped like a shard of glass. He picked it up, examining it closely. It was warm to the touch and etched with strange symbols that seemed to pulse faintly with light. "Looks like we found our first clue," Lucy said, snapping a photo of the object. Ethan slipped it into his pocket, determination burning in his chest. Somewhere out there, Claire was waiting for him. And he wasn't going to stop until he brought her home. Zix stared at Claire, its large, multifaceted eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the alien ship. For a moment, neither of them moved or spoke. The air between them felt heavy, charged with unspoken questions and emotions neither fully understood. Claire clutched her arms tightly around herself, trying to steady her breathing. She had no idea what Zix was thinking, or if it even thought the way humans did, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something inside the creature had shifted. Finally, Zix broke the silence. "You are unexpected," it said, its telepathic voice calm but tinged with confusion. "Your presence disrupts our systems. Your thoughts, they are overwhelming." Claire frowned, unsure how to respond. "What does that mean? Am I some kind of problem for you?" Zix hesitated before answering. "You are not compatible with our methods. Every attempt to analyze you results in failure. Our machines cannot process your essence." "My essence?" Claire echoed, raising an eyebrow. "You make me sound like some kind of magical being." "You misunderstand," Zix replied, tilting its head slightly. "It is not magic. It is something else. Something we do not yet comprehend." Claire sighed, running a hand through her hair. As strange and terrifying as this situation was, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. If Zix's technology didn't work on her, maybe she had a chance to reason with it, or at least buy herself some time. "Look," she began, choosing her words carefully. "I get that you're here to study humans or whatever, but there has to be another way. You don't have to lock me up or poke me with weird machines. We can talk. Isn't that enough?" Zix seemed to consider this, its claw-like fingers twitching slightly. "Communication is inefficient. Data collection is precise." "Maybe," Claire countered, taking a cautious step forward. "But talking might teach you things your machines can't. Like why I'm so scared right now, or why I miss my boyfriend, Ethan, or why I just want to go home." At the mention of Ethan, Zix's posture stiffened. "Emotions are irrelevant. They serve no purpose in our mission." Claire shook her head, frustration bubbling up inside her. "That's where you're wrong. Emotions are everything. They're what make us human. Without them, we'd be, well, we'd be like you. Cold. Empty." The room fell silent again, the hum of the machines filling the space between them. Zix's expression, if it could even be called that, remained unreadable, but Claire thought she detected a flicker of doubt in its glowing eyes. Maybe she was getting through to it. Maybe she wasn't completely powerless after all. Back on Earth, Ethan paced anxiously outside Claire's family farm, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. The night sky stretched endlessly above him, mocking him with its vastness. He hadn't slept since Claire disappeared, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Was she hurt? Scared? Alone? Lucy, the journalist who had reluctantly agreed to help him, leaned against her car, watching him with a mixed B. Jing Sai Che Kai Jung, Ji Gu Chak Sun. Claire's world spun in a blur of light and sound as she felt herself being pulled higher and higher. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing like a drum in her ears. The cold night air rushed past her, stealing her breath and chilling her to the bone. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. All she could do was stare wide-eyed at the glowing craft above her, its smooth surface shimmering like liquid metal. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the movement stopped. Claire found herself lying on a hard metallic floor inside what looked like a dimly lit room. The walls were curved and covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly blue. Machines hummed softly around her, their purpose unknown but somehow unsettling. Panic clawed at her throat as she scrambled to sit up, her hands trembling as they touched the icy surface beneath her. Before she could gather her thoughts, a figure stepped into view. It was tall, much taller than any human, and its body resembled something between an insect and a machine. Its elongated limbs moved with unnatural precision, and its large, multifaceted eyes reflected the faint light of the room. Claire froze, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. "Do not be afraid," a voice echoed in her head, calm and emotionless. It wasn't spoken aloud. Instead, it felt like the words were planted directly into her mind. "You are safe." "Safe?" Claire stammered, clutching her arms tightly to her chest. What is this place? Who are you?" "I am called Zix," the creature replied. "I represent the collective known as the Vrilax. We have brought you here for study." "For study?" Claire repeated, her voice rising in disbelief. "You mean like some kind of experiment? You can't just take me from my home." Zix paused, tilting its head slightly as if trying to understand her reaction. "Your species often observes and studies other life forms. This is no different. It's completely different." Claire shot back, anger beginning to override her fear. "You didn't ask me. You didn't even give me a choice." Zix hesitated again, something flickering behind its unreadable expression. For a moment, Claire thought she saw uncertainty, a crack in the alien's otherwise perfect composure. But before she could say anything else, Zix turned and activated one of the machines nearby. A panel slid open, revealing a glass-like chamber filled with a clear, jelly-like substance. "You will enter now," Zix instructed, gesturing toward the chamber. "No way," Claire said firmly, backing away until her back hit the wall. "I'm not going anywhere near that thing." Zix approached slowly, its movements deliberate but not threatening. "Resistance is unnecessary. The procedure will cause minimal discomfort." "Minimal discomfort?" Claire snapped. "That doesn't exactly make me feel better." For the first time since their encounter began, Zix seemed unsure of how to proceed. Its long, spindly fingers twitched slightly, and its glowing eyes dimmed ever so slightly. Claire noticed this change and seized the opportunity to speak again. "Look," she said, forcing herself to sound calmer despite the terror still coursing through her veins. "I don't know why you chose me or what you want to learn, but maybe there's another way. Maybe we can talk instead of whatever this is." Zix tilted its head again, processing her words. Then, without warning, it reached out and placed one of its claw-like hands on her shoulder. Claire flinched but didn't pull away. In that instant, a flood of images and emotions surged through her mind. Thoughts that weren't hers. She saw flashes of distant planets, strange creatures, and endless voids of space. And she felt something else too. Loneliness. A deep, aching isolation that seemed to radiate from Zix itself. When the connection broke, Claire stumbled backward, gasping for air. Zix retracted its hand, standing silently as if waiting for her response. What was that?" Claire asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "A glimpse," Zix replied, "of who I am, of why I am here." Claire swallowed hard, her fear giving way to a newfound curiosity. Whatever Zix truly was, it wasn't the cold, calculating monster she'd imagined. There was more to this story, and perhaps, just perhaps, she might find a way to survive it after all. The night was calm and cool, with a gentle breeze rustling through the tall cornfields surrounding Claire's family farm. The stars above glittered like tiny diamonds scattered across a velvet black canvas. Ethan leaned back in his folding chair, sipping from a thermos of lukewarm coffee while adjusting the focus on his old telescope. Beside him, Claire sat cross-legged on a blanket, her head tilted upward as she gazed at the endless expanse of the universe. "You know," Ethan said with a smirk, "if we ever meet aliens, I'm pretty sure they'd be more interested in you than me." Claire laughed softly, brushing a strand of her auburn hair out of her face. "Oh, come on, Ethan. Aliens? Really? You've been watching too many sci-fi movies again." "Hey, don't knock it," he replied, pretending to look offended. "I'm just saying, if there's intelligent life out there, they'd probably appreciate someone like you. Smart, kind, and way too good for this planet." Claire rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. She loved these nights with Ethan, even if his obsession with UFOs sometimes bordered on ridiculous. There was something comforting about being away from the noise of town, surrounded only by the chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. It felt like they were the only two people left in the world. Ethan adjusted the telescope one last time before gesturing for Claire to take a look. "Here, check this out. See that cluster of stars? That's the Pleiades. Some people call it the Seven Sisters." Claire peered through the lens, marveling at the tiny pinpricks of light that seemed so close yet impossibly far away. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "Do you think there's anyone else out there looking at the same stars right now?" Before Ethan could answer, a sudden flash lit up the sky, momentarily blinding them both. Claire gasped, pulling away from the telescope as the light grew brighter and began moving toward them. At first, it looked like a falling star, streaking across the heavens with unnatural speed. But then it slowed, hovering directly above the field. "What is that?" Claire whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan stood up quickly, shielding his eyes with one hand. "I don't know, but it's definitely not a plane or a satellite." His heart raced as the object descended lower, revealing itself to be a massive disc-shaped craft glowing with an eerie blue light. The air around them crackled with energy, making the hairs on their arms stand on end. "Ethan, we should go," Claire said urgently, tugging at his sleeve. But before they could move, a beam of light shot down from the craft, enveloping Claire in its glow. She cried out, stumbling backward as the force lifted her off the ground. "Claire!" Ethan shouted, lunging forward to grab her hand. He managed to catch her fingers for a brief moment, but the pull was too strong. Her terrified eyes locked onto his as she was yanked upward into the beam. "No, let her go," he screamed, waving his fists futility.